So I heard something really neat on one of my daily devotionals that I wanted to share with you. This particular devo is about the life of Joseph. I've always loved Joseph. There is so much we can learn from his story. He's one of the few characters in the Old Testament that we are not told of having some big character flaw. The only other one I can think of is maybe Daniel. So I've always been intrigued by Joseph because of that. Now I'm sure he was not perfect, but he was certainly a man of great faith and wisdom and maturity. The devotion author mentions that when Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery, the price they got for him was 20 shekels of silver. And we should notice when the Bible gives us these little details, because they are usually there for a reason. She says that she had this aha moment once when she was reading through Leviticus. In Leviticus 27, it tells the amounts to be given if someone makes a special vow to dedicate a person to the Lord. It gives different amounts for different ages. The value for a male between the ages of 5 and 20 is 20 shekels. Joseph was around 17 years old when he was sold. So what struck the author was that the 20 shekels of silver received for Joseph was the same amount required for a person of Joseph's age when he was sold. She says that when he was sold into slavery, it's as if he were being dedicated to the Lord. And if you're familiar with Joseph's story, up until then, he had led a very pampered life. He was from a wealthy family. He was dad's favorite. But after he is sold into slavery, he endures some very difficult years. He ends up in prison for a crime he did not even commit. But through all of this, Joseph stays faithful to the Lord. And though Joseph did not know it at the time, God was setting him up for eventual great blessing. He ended up becoming the second most powerful man in the entire world at that time. And also, God was putting Joseph into position to provide for his children, the Israelites, during a terrible famine that was coming. So God used Joseph and blessed Joseph in amazing ways. Joseph's life was truly dedicated to the service of the Lord. But before the blessing, Joseph had to endure years of hardship. God was training him to be the person he needed to be for what God was calling him to do. So being sold into slavery was Joseph's dedication to God. And that really struck me hard, because I realized that whatever our struggle is, whatever our hardship is how we are sold into slavery. And that is the point where our lives can be dedicated to God. Now, at the end of the story, when Joseph is reunited with his brothers who sold him into slavery, after he had become second in command to the Pharaoh of Egypt, Joseph tells them that what you meant for evil, God intended for good. So when you dedicate your life to God, He can take whatever your struggle is, whatever pain you have had to endure, and use it for good. So how have you been sold into slavery? For me, it was coming from a family broken by religious and emotional abuse by my parent. This is why I struggled with depression and anorexia as a young girl. It's why I attempted suicide multiple times, and I actually accomplished it once before God brought me back to life in the hospital. That was how I was sold into slavery. That was how my life was laid down on the altar. That struggle was my 20 shekels, the price for my life. And it is exactly there that God has used me now to minister to other people, to help other people who struggle with depression and abuse. And there are people who have gotten deliverance and healing and have even gotten saved from reading my life story in my book. Through the redemption of Jesus Christ, I can now say to my mother's demons, what you meant for evil, God has used for good. Let God redeem your pain and sacrifice, whatever it is, and we all have something. Whatever that thing is, you've already been sold into the slavery of it, whether it be abuse or sickness or hardship, maybe even your own bad choices. Whatever it is, there is hope, because God can turn it around into something good, into great blessing. But you have to choose to give that pain and suffering to God and let Him redeem it. He's the only one who can do it. You have to trust that no matter what you've gone through or what prison you're experiencing now, God's love and redemption is greater. He has a plan for your life. Joseph had no idea when he was sold into slavery, and during all those years he was in prison, he had no idea how God was going to turn it around, but he just stayed faithful to God. And no matter what you are going through or what pain you've suffered, it is never too late to lay it on the altar, to dedicate it to God as your 20 shekels. No matter what it is, just keep loving God. Keep worshiping Him and following Him no matter what. And that is the attitude of faith that allows God to redeem it for you and turn it into a blessing. There is no hardship or injury that is too great for God to redeem. God bless you.